name's Shawn I'm a longtime friend of Billy's. He's been friends with him since I was about 11 or 12, so going on 4 or 5 years now. He's been mentoring me. He told me that he had to go to the Nuanas thing tonight, so he asked would I cover his Bible study for him, and I told him I would. And I would just like to get y'all's names, that way I can know how to address y'all properly. And this is my family up here, by the way. It's my grandmother, my friend Jamie, my mother, my little brother Tyler, and my stepdad John. So
nice to meet y'all.
So we'll go ahead and we'll start with y'all's names. We'll start with you, sir.
Ronnie Ray.
Nice to meet you.
Bobby Little and Marie Little.
Nice to meet y'all. Yes, sir.
Mike.
Okay, very nice to meet y'all. I was trying to figure out, this isn't my first time giving like a sermon type or Bible study in front of people. This is probably my 6th or 7th time. And so I was trying to figure out, like I always do, what I'm going to do for it. And so I spent time praying about it. And I was coming home one day, and there was some music playing, and a song came on by a band I listened to, and it was talking about the Tower of Babel. And so I figured, okay, God, that's what you want me to preach about. So what I'm going to be talking about is the Tower of Babel, which is in Genesis chapter 11. If y'all want to follow along with me in your Bibles, I'll go ahead and read the verses, and then we'll kind of talk about it some, and just some of the, even more of the historical facts behind it. So I'll give y'all a minute to turn there if y'all are turning there in your Bibles. And can all of y'all hear me fine? Do I need to get a mic, or y'all okay? All right. And,
Probably hear you.
okay, all right. Genesis chapter 11. I'm sorry, I didn't tell you that. Genesis chapter 11, verses...
Genesis what?
Genesis, yes ma'am.
Can you hear? I never heard Genesis.
And I'm going to read verses 1 through 9 of chapter 11. And so it starts, Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower and the people that were building it. The Lord said, If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan, just a moment, I have to turn the page, do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language. So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it is called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. So when they were building this tower, this was a very tall tower. It's what we would consider a skyscraper. It was 300 feet tall, and that's very tall for this time period, because this is way on back in history. This is a couple hundred years after the flood. So all these people, in the beginning of Genesis, after Noah comes off the boat, he tells the people to scatter and go and multiply the earth. They disobeyed him right from the start because they all set on one place. And they're all speaking this common language. So, it's unity. They're all working together. And so while they're actually building this tower was not just used as a symbol or a representation of what they had built in the city that they had. Actually, there were pagans among them. They were using it to worship a Mesopotamian god. And that's another reason that God had such a problem with this. And he realized that their pride was starting to get in their way. And that was kind of what I wanted to center the Tower of Babel around, was pride. Because that's the whole reason they were building this. They figured, we have one language. We're all together. What can stop us? They had pretty much had this God complex. And y'all jump in whenever you feel like you need to. If you feel like you need to say something, just go right ahead. I'll even ask a couple questions throughout it. And probably one of my questions would be, have y'all ever had to deal with somebody who had a lot of self-pride, a lot like a God complex sort of? And think about that person. How did you respond to them when all they could think about was themselves? Does anybody want to, chip into that one? I'll answer if y'all don't want to, but like I said, when y'all feel like it, just jump right on in. The main thing that I did when somebody who faces a God complex, I'm impatient, so I have to be careful about that because I tend to get irritated with people. But, I realized because that somebody has this whole self-complex, maybe they have self-esteem issues. Think about it. Maybe they're beating other people down and talking about themselves because they feel bad themselves. because even though we would hate to admit it, talking about other people makes us feel better. Why do you think people gossip? It's terrible. Yeah, I got a couple laughs at that, but it's the truth. I mean, when people gossip, they're doing it to make themselves feel better. And I'll be honest, I'm guilty of gossip. I'm sure all of us have been guilty at one point of gossip, even though we don't really want to admit it. And so, and that breaks unity. You know, you think about it, what if the entire world, we could all be unified like these people were? Think about what we could do. Because God actually said in this, you know, anything they set their minds to, they can do it. What if we could do that? What if as a church we could just join together and just go for it? Just go and spread the gospel throughout the entire world. But we don't do that because there are so many divisions within the church. And it's over, sometimes it's over little things, sometimes it's over big things. We're not going to go into that because we don't need an argument right now. And so I would just want to ask y'all a question. Why do y'all think the church is so divided? What do you think separates people from one another inside a church? Why can't we be unified?
Maybe they really don't have, their heart is not in the right place.
Absolutely. You get people all the time that you hear. There was a reverend not too long ago, actually, he stood up for homosexual rights. Said that it was okay, that the Bible said that nothing on it. It's not correct. In Leviticus and in Romans it talks about it. But you're right, people don't have their heart in the right places. I think the main problem when people become a Christian or they start getting involved in the church, they're doing it for the feel-good aspect. I mean, really, we want to feel like good people. I came to church Sunday, woo, I'm a good person. No, that's not how it works. And I can't tell you, even from the area I'm from around Scotland Neck. Y'all probably know where that's at, and Hobgood and all that. And I actually had my chemistry teacher who was agnostic. We were talking one day, and he said he knew a man, very, very good friend of his, was a Christian, but he didn't live with the mind of Christ died for me, that's salvation. His entire thing was the verse out of Luke, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So his whole philosophy was be a good person. And that, now, what am I saying? No, I'm not saying you can be a Christian and go be terrible to people. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, if you're truly a Christian, you have a change of heart anyway, and you know that the only way to achieve heaven is through the resurrection of Christ and believing that and becoming saved. And this may go a couple different places just with the discussion questions, like, you know, we went off to the change of heart and all that. And I mean, that's fine. We can go wherever y'all want to with this. And I'm going to kind of bring it back to the Tower of Babel. The reason that there is belief, and there have been studies done, how many of y'all have heard of Nephilim? It is speaking of throughout the Bible, it's where Goliath is from. Nephilim, the people who lived there were descendants of these people. The reason that it is believed that these people also built this Tower of Babel, they were committing practices and doing indecent things with demons. That is one reason that this, so that's another reason God did not like this. This was as I said, pagan and demon-centered tower. Now, were there people among them that did worship God? Absolutely, but they got sucked in. Even back then, they had peer pressure. I don't know, I mean, as you get later on in life, maybe you'll understand that, but do y'all face peer pressure even now? Like, even as you're later on in life, and would you like to share some of it, or? I mean, because I'll be more.
I think at all ages you're going to have peer pressure. You've got that what you call your equal, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and
Everybody has that desire to want to fit in, no matter what age you are.
And
that's right. That's right.
What in particular do you feel like you need? I'm just kind of curious at y'all's age. What do you feel like you need to be involved in? Like, what is it in particular? Because I'd say personally for my age group, it's more like drinking. I mean, that is something that happens in my school, even as far as smoking marijuana and stuff like that. That stuff, I mean, that goes around. But, I mean, that may be extreme, but that's just for my age group. But what about y'all? What is it that y'all feel y'all are drawn to do that's not right?
Well, you're going to have that, any kind of abuse like that at any age.
Okay.
And depending on the friends that you choose at any age and what they're involved in, you know, you're going to want to, like you say, fit in.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it's the same, I think, when we're our age.
You're what, 25?
Yes, exactly.
There we go. That's what I thought. But my main thing is, what I'm thinking, I guess when people, they think of peer pressure, they think of only teenagers. And I try not to think that way because like my mom just said, and like you just said, everybody faces it. And I feel like people who were involved in building this Tower of Babel, who did worship God, they wanted to fit in. They didn't want to be the outcast. I think, honestly, they were just afraid to leave. They all got together in this one little area just because they felt like they needed to. That was the safest place. And God even told them, after Noah got off the ark, go and multiply and populate the earth. They don't listen very well. Do we listen very well? I mean, I don't always. You ask my mom, I don't listen that well. And I mean, it's just, it seems like we would say we wouldn't do a lot of things. I guarantee you there were people in the Tower of Babel, they said, I'm not going to get involved in that in the demon practices. I'm not going to get involved in building that statue. What happened? They got involved. Because you gotta think about it. Every single person that was on the earth at this time was in this little bitty area. And this is actually a little bit of a fun fact. Tower of Babel is the exact same place where Nineveh and Babylon are located, which is near Baghdad. And if you think about it, that place is terrible. I mean, because in Revelation, think about it, it talks about Babylon being the mother of prostitutes. It talks about how horrible of a place it is. And then with Nineveh, Jonah was supposed to go and give the word of God to Nineveh. What did he do? He refused it. Why did Nineveh need it? Well, they were practicing homosexuality, they were killing each other, they were lying, they were stealing. It was a whole bunch of stuff. This area in particular is just terrible. I don't see why you'd want to stay there in the first place. But people did. They settled right down. Have y'all maybe ever found yourself in a situation where you were scared to leave? I mean, I'm not going to try to focus on just peer pressure, just being teenagers. Okay, I want to get y'all's perspective too, because this seems to be something I don't hear too much from older people. It's always focused on how are teenagers affected. I get how teenagers are affected. I'm a teenager. All right, let's talk about how y'all are affected. And how we can interpret this through the scripture, how to deal with it. I mean, anybody can jump in. It doesn't matter. Anybody at all.
After we get out of age, we don't have, it's not as strong. Peer pressure doesn't bother me.
It doesn't bother you?
I mean, my peers, they either like me or don't like me. Either way, it's all right. It don't matter.
So you don't ever feel like necessarily left out or lonely just because somebody leaves you out or something, or they try to pull you into something?
Well, you're talking to people that get together all the time, so it's kind of hard to, which now I know you can be in a crowd of people and still be alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, we fellowship right much, so it's, I don't know.
Do you think maybe the reason that you don't feel threatened by anybody just because these are people that you've known for so long and you've been friends with them and everything, so there's really nothing to be afraid of? Yeah, I guess I'm constantly making new friends. Maybe that's why I'm looking at it differently.
But you're nervous before you come someplace to do something like this or to give a sermon. I know how you are in the mornings. You're nervous that you're nervous that they're not going to accept you, that they're not going to accept what you say.
Yeah. And
that's
I do feel like
it's the same way for adults when we try anything new or do things new. There's always that worry of acceptance, and is people going to ostracize you for something you're saying, and it makes people skittish about opening up and saying anything.
And I feel like maybe that's a big step in the witnessing of Jesus Christ, His gospel, is like she just said, we're afraid of what people are going to think. Because I guarantee you, all of y'all have heard a preacher at some time, he said something that stepped on your toes. And I guarantee you, he was up there shaking because you stepped on your toes. I guarantee it.
Because you're nauseous every time before you give a sermon.
I sure am. I'll be completely honest. I was nervous to come in here and give a Bible study. And now I'm talking to y'all.
Anytime you get up there, I don't think you should ever, I'm more comfortable with it now, but I am still nervous because I do make mistakes.
Yeah.
And when I make them, I always make them publicly.
And I think that's our fear. We need to realize also that we're not perfect. We're going to screw up.
But
We're going to go
I also know that this is my church family, and they laugh along with me. you know?
Yes, ma'am.
But my first aim is, and what I get nervous is about, is that I want to present it the way God would have me present it, and I might not be good enough,
That's
you know?
that's definitely how I feel a lot of times when I go to do stuff. I feel like I don't deserve to do it.
Yeah.
Like, why? Hey, wait a minute. Let me scoot this over. Okay, you got a big head. All right, let me scoot over.
Well, I sub Sunday school at our church, and it makes me nervous to do it because I don't feel qualified. I don't feel like I'm gonna do it correctly or explain it correctly. Stop.
And that's just the whole thing. Where we've got to rely on God. But let's be honest. That's easier said than done. It is. It drives me nuts when somebody comes to somebody with a problem, someone who's a Christian. Just rely on God. Okay, thank you. You told me that, but how am I supposed to rely on God? That's my thing. And we've got to introduce the gospel in a way that we tell them, yes, you have to rely on God and how you do it. Okay, it's not just saying, okay, got it, and going and doing what you were doing anyway. I mean, how would you introduce the gospel to somebody where you explain to them the process of salvation and how to rely on God? Because the main problem that I think a lot of Christians have is they get nervous, like she said, and they beat it into somebody. You cannot beat it into somebody. How would you like it if somebody who's a Muslim came and beat their beliefs into you? Is that going back? I mean, obviously, what their religion isn't truthful, but would that push you away, or is that going to pull you closer?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's the same concept. I mean, as I guarantee you, with a lot of atheists, it's as hard to convert an atheist to Christianity as it is to convert a Christian to Islam. And I mean, we've got to look at it that way. I think a lot of times with just the particular area we're in, which is the Bible Belt, this is, the Reformation type area, we assume that everybody's Christian. I've even been guilty of that myself. I will assume that somebody is Christian just because of the area we live in. But I found the best way to assume is to assume that nobody's heard the gospel. That way it makes it, if you feel that call to go witness somebody, it doesn't matter. I mean, if they've heard about it and they've accepted it, great. But hey, you got called to go do it and you went and did it anyway. You tell them, you just felt called to do it. Do they know about Jesus Christ? And that's scary. I mean, I've got a couple friends that are agnostic and atheists. I love them to death. I absolutely love them to death, but they're the most hard-headed people. And I've tried to introduce the gospel, not force it down your throat, but just kind of gently, like little at a time. And I found that I've actually become really, really good friends with these people rather than pushing them away. And like I said, just assume that nobody's heard the gospel. You assume that you are the only person that has heard the gospel when you go out somewhere public. I guarantee you it'll make a difference. Like I said, we're just going to go everywhere with this Bible study. It's fine. Whatever you don't need to talk about, we'll talk about. So let's focus on how would we introduce it so we can tell people how to rely on God. It's not just simply trusting God. That's not. Let's go a little deeper than that. Let's put a little thought into it. Okay? So let's say that I'm an atheist and one of y'all is presenting the gospel to me. How would you start the conversation? Any of y'all can start this if you want to. That's fine. Even my family can start it. It's fine with me.
You could, first start out by asking them about how they're doing, and if they say they're doing great, then you could work it in like, well, God has blessed you with good health.
I like that. Because you did force it down on, but you just kind of, God bless you. Well, let's say I don't believe in God. Then what? Would you keep acting on the fact that I'm still blessed?
Did you ask them why?
You could ask them why.
Yeah.
But the main thing that I've noticed with people who are atheists or agnostic, the reason that they don't believe is because there is no scientific proof of a God. They say that I can't prove that God is real. You can't prove that God isn't real. It works both ways. But that'll just get you in a circle argument. It's not going to go anywhere. Trust me, I know. And I think after we question why, hear their side of the story, hear why they don't believe. And don't get angry. If they insult you a little bit, don't get angry, because that's about the last thing you want to do. And then let's say that my answer was, because you cannot scientifically prove there is a God. The main answer that I've seen to that, well, look around you. Look at nature. Look at everything that's running. There's no way this could have happened by chance.
And you're talking about faith.
Absolutely. You walk by faith, not by sight. But see, I think that's where a lot of people have a hard time. They don't want to have faith in something they can't see. That's why so many people, that's why Scientology has become so big lately. You hear of a lot of celebrities moving towards Scientology. That's because that's something you can see, you can observe, but does it save you? Their whole belief system is that science is salvation. The understanding of yourself is what puts you to heaven. It's humanitarianism, which is basically worship of self, which in extreme cases can be a form of Satanism. Just going to put that out there.
Which a lot of that is taught today at school.
Absolutely.
And it is hard, like our grandchildren. I've tried to tell, I said, they're gonna want to tell you that you are a monkey,
Yeah,
And I said,
absolutely.
but it's not so because it says it in the Bible.
Yep.
And I said, I know you've got to put the answers down to be able to pass that grade, the way they tell you.
Yep.
But you've got to remember, that's a hard thing.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
It really worries,
And I can't really speak from experience from that point because I go to a small academy. And it is Christian based. We have a devotion every morning. But for somebody to say that we came from monkeys and they base their whole philosophy off Charles Darwin, let's not forget, Charles Darwin denied evolution on his deathbed. Said that he had no evidential proof of evolution. And ever since then, it's just a theory. A theory is just a hypothesis with some proof. A little bit of proof. You cannot prove it 100%, just like the Big Bang Theory. Think about that, because I'm sure that your grandchildren are taught the Big Bang Theory. That is a very big topic. It is very hard for people to believe that there was a God that is, that was, that will be, that was not created but was there before anything. That's hard. At times it's hard for me to wrap around, because you think everything has to have an origin. God doesn't. God was there. God's been there. Okay? God's going to be there. And so, with the whole theory, excuse me, I did not mean to use that word. with God creating the earth and everything in it, the reason that people don't like that is because I feel like that they think they're insignificant then, because there is something higher than them. Because haven't you noticed, even in social media, we like to idolize ourselves, like as a whole, as a human. We like to talk about the achievements of people and how well people do and all this. It doesn't really amount to much. Just like people who make a lot of money and hold in their fist till the day they die. They don't go with you when you die. Okay, just let it go. I'm not saying go blow it all and get broke, but don't hold on to it. When you die, it's gone. Everything you have here is gone. You go and you face God, and it's heaven or hell. And you know what the great part about that is? That's our choice. So, okay, let's say that you tried every possible way that you can to get a person to believe in God. And your final option, and you have to introduce this at some time, is hell. How would you introduce judgment in hell? That is hard.
I would ask them, do they believe in the devil? Because if they believe in the devil, then how can they not believe in God?
Well, and as you can see, the devil has influenced a lot of things today. Anything from music to movies to social media, anything. You can find Satan in anything if you try hard enough. And so I feel like, if you think about it, all these cults that are satanic cults, Satan represents, he's a light bearer. That's what Lucifer means. And so he's an angel of light. He represents the luxuries of this world. So money, power, fame. That's why people would believe in Satan and not believe in God. Because Satan is like a big granddaddy. He'll give you whatever you want. God brings judgment. It's like discipline. If my mother pops Tyler because he did something bad, she loves him. She's trying to teach him right from wrong. But people don't like that. People don't like to be told they're wrong. Amen?
Amen.
Yeah. And so, my thing is, why would you worship something? If you know of Satan and know of his origin, why would you worship something that got thrown out of heaven and is going to end up in hell one day versus the benevolent being up there, God? See, and that's, yes ma'am.
Don't lie. The reason is because they're afraid they're going to miss out on the good stuff here on earth.
Exactly. Exactly.
All
And
that
that's something in the,
materialistic stuff that they see.
There
that's
you go.
they gonna miss it.
and worrying about heaven or hell, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to die right there. They're not going to die for years and years and years and years and years down the road. I don't need to worry about it now because it's not going to happen for a long time. I'll worry about it then.
And that goes back to the witness. Let's say you get called to witness somebody and you don't do it. Well, they'll be fine. Somebody else will witness to them. They're not a Christian. They die in a car crash on the way home. And you find out about it. Because there was actually, Billy Hardwick was reading something to me one day. He went, Shawn, listen to this. We were at Sunday school and he had this newspaper. It was this older woman, probably in her late 60s, early 70s. She had died of a heart attack. And he was listing all this stuff she had done. Charities, soup kitchens. She donated all this money. I mean, a bunch of stuff. You know what it said at the bottom? Grew up as an atheist, died as an atheist. All that good work amounted to nothing.
A lot of people think that just because you're good, you're gonna go to heaven.
And I think that's where a lot of people take Luke, what Jesus said, to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Did Jesus ever say that was the way to heaven? No. Okay? The only way to heaven is through him. People don't seem to realize that. And I think another reason that people do not like the idea of worshiping and following God is because they feel like they're being controlled. They feel like, well, you're basically telling me to bow down to a dictator. No, we're not. It is your choice whether you worship him or you don't. It is your choice whether you read your Bible or you don't. It's your choice if you go to church or not. You have free will. God's not. If we were all predestined, as you would like to call it, we'd all just be robots. I mean, pretty much. If we had no choice, what would be the point?
See, we've come to know that, thank God, I'm not in control. Boy, we are in a mess.
And that goes right back when we idolize ourselves. It only leads to hell. Okay, because you try to. Okay, God's here. All right, he's way, way on up here. You're right here. You think you're going to talk to him and get yourself saved? That's not how it works. There's a big mediator. It's called Jesus. That's what that cross is for. To remind us what he did. And so, like I said, this can go anywhere. It's fine with me. Because, I mean, I'm really enjoying this discussion right now. So what we've pretty much seen is that the reason people will believe in Satan and not God is because he can give us materialistic things. Okay? But let's also remember money. This is a concept that I tell a lot of atheists when they talk about how great money is and everything. Money cannot buy you love. And they stop. Money cannot buy you love. And there was actually, back in the 1500s during Martin Luther's time, there was a man who sold golden tickets to heaven. You could, I'm not even kidding, it was something like $1,000. You could buy a ticket to heaven. It would reserve you a seat in heaven. How stupid do you think those people felt when they got up there? Well, I got my ticket. Nope. I mean, it was for nothing. And that just goes ahead and tells you money can't buy your way into heaven. So what do you think is running through the minds of people who are in love with money when money is their God? What would you think they are thinking? Would they think maybe the same thing we do about Jesus Christ?
Probably not. They're more involved about what their money can get them.
And see, another misinterpretation that I've seen a lot is that if you become a Christian, your life's going to be wonderful. No. In Matthew, Jesus says your life will be filled with tribulation. There's going to be war. There's going to be destruction. Okay? He never warned you that it was going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it when you die, that's for sure. But that's actually my friend Austin. He's an atheist. He told me that the reason that he had such a problem with Christianity is because when he was growing up, he was around people who professed themselves as Christian. I don't know what they were or what they weren't. That's between them and God. But they treated God like a big granddaddy. And if he did not give them what they wanted, they cursed his face. Is that not childish? Is that not selfish? It's like a little kid. Like if I take him to Walmart and don't get him a toy, he just throws a fit. He doesn't actually do that. I'm just saying if he were. But so we need to be careful how we're introducing the gospel too, because we may be introducing it the wrong way because we don't fully understand it. We're sitting there thinking, oh, well maybe if I worship God, I'll get anything I want. Yes, but you got to remember there's God's will. Okay? He will give you what you believe you need in or to help you. Some people, the main question I get asked, if God loves everybody, why are there diseases? You can, okay, let's say you get some type of cancer. You can use, no, actually, I've got a perfect example. A friend of mine, my girlfriend's friend, he was 16 years old, got killed in a tractor accident. This happened about a month ago, right before prom. And, she was sitting there asking me, she's a Christian too, asking, well, why do things like this happen if God loves us? And I said, well, see, they can use this in one of two ways. They can either curse God and destroy their relationship with God, or they can rely on God. Like I was saying, we got to teach how to teach people to rely on God, and that can build their relationship. Free will and circumstance. That's pretty much how it goes. And when it's brought together, it can either help you or harm you. It's your choice. Now, we can all admit that we've been guilty of questioning God. Why did I get in this situation? Have we ever been angry with God? Yeah, but I want you to remember, we don't have a right to be angry with God. God knows what he's doing. We don't. If we did, we wouldn't have screwed up 6,000 years ago. Think about Adam and Eve. You think they knew what they were doing? Yeah, I bet you they thought, yeah, this fruit's going to taste really good. Look where we're at 6,000 years later. Look at all the murder and destruction because of that one little event. Let's say even if Eve hadn't committed that sin, I'm pretty sure somewhere along the line somebody would have messed up because we're not perfect. We're not human. We're not God. Yeah, we're 100% human. I can promise you that. So let me ask y'all, if you see somebody who is struggling with a disease and who is a Christian and they're angry with God and they're questioning God, how are you going to react to that situation? How are you going to tell them that, God still loves you? Because that's hard. Let's not lie. It's hard when somebody's been struck with a disease to tell them that God still loves them. They feel left alone. How would we introduce that God still loves you? One thing we could do is show the bigger picture. Is look, okay, with this disease, this may be a little harsh. If you still rely on God up until you die from this disease, if you die from it, look where you're going. That's one way of looking at it. I'm not saying rush them to death, but look, hey, look, what's waiting for you? Or if you look at them and say, look, you can use this to strengthen your relationship, and they make it through it, their relationship's going to be stronger because you showed them how to rely on God, and that got them through it. Or you can just ignore them and watch it crumble. I wouldn't advise that. But, like I said, we went everywhere with this, and that's fine with me. But back to the Tower of Babel. So obviously there's sin in the world. Do you think they knew that they were sinning? Do you think they were aware that this tower that was going to be used for demon practices and the worship of Mesopotamian god, do you think they knew that they were sinning?
I think they did.
Which ones they knew they were sinning, though?
If you put something else before God.
Exactly. This became an idol because it even says, let us build a city around this tower so people can see what we did. First of all, what people? You're all in one place, okay? Why you gotta build a 300-foot tower in the middle of a city for anybody to see? Oh, yeah, that's right, they're narcissistic. They're prideful. And so that just goes right back to human nature. And, like I said, I'm glad that y'all are responding to everything. I love it when people talk during the Bible study. I love that. And so with this tower, let's go and make it like a metaphor. Do we have towers in our life? Towers necessarily that aren't in front of God, but we struggle with it.
Yes.
My brother answered it, yes. Yes, absolutely. I'll go ahead and I will be honest. One of my main towers is probably, and anybody who knows me knows this because I'm very fond of it, is music. I adore music. I have ever since I was little. Yeah, my mom's shaking her head, she knows. So. But I've got to be careful because if I'm taking that music and I'm spending more time with it than I am in my Bible or praying or even going to church, that's an idol. So what do y'all think are maybe some idols that you struggle with in your life or maybe you've seen somebody struggle with? We can go ahead and throw money. That would definitely be a big one. Money would definitely be a big one. What about other ones that you don't care about that much? Maybe that is, you don't have to say if it's personal to you, but just towers that you think may become idols if you weren't careful.
Like saying to God?
What do y'all think?
Work.
What about work? Because because you can work, even when you don't have to work, and that's putting it before God. That becomes an idol. And that goes right back to money, because some people think the more they work, the more money they get, or
See,
Even-
when you got a job, you got to go in when they tell you to.
Absolutely.
But that does not mean that you cannot take that opportunity to fellowship and, because there's other times during the week that you can go and fellowship and hear the word. And then you've got your own Bible
Absolutely.
to go into the word. So you've got to, when you have a job, you've got to work. So it's when you go ahead and let all the work, just say, well, I just can't go worship at all, you know,
Yeah.
this week or whatever, because I've got to work.
Yeah.
But you
And-
can.
And I know I wouldn't have really understood the word thing, but I turned 16 last September, and I got a job when I was 16 then. I've been working ever since. I've had 2 jobs. I worked at an Italian restaurant, and now I'm working at a sub shop and a steakhouse. And so I kind of see what's like, you know, you get home retired, you don't feel like doing it. On your days off, you don't feel like doing anything. I figured that out too. I used to wonder why my mom would come home and she'd sleep on her days off. I had no idea what she was doing that. Now I fully understand.
He understands better now.
Because she'll come up to me on Thursdays. Hey, Shawn, you want to go do this? No. Why? 'Cause I'm going to sleep. That's what I'm going to do. But anything else that we can think of?
Shawn?
Yes, yes, sir.
I think that's your name, Shawn.
Yes, sir.
That's what it belongs. We have an example between here and Roanoke Baptist of the Tower of Babel.
Do you really?
Well, we had one. A guy was building a tower down here to get closer to God. It was supposed to be a prayer room, and he built it over 4 or 5 stories high. He built it by himself, but he never saw it finished. He died. Am I wrong?
How long ago was that?
It's been a good long while.
And you said it got.
30 years, I thought.
Hasn't been 30 years, has it?
Maybe not.
Well, that was the point of the Tower of Babel too, was to get closer to God, so God could see what.
The other building that he built is being used now to help, teach the message. But
Yeah, and I mean, not every tower, like physical tower that you build, is necessarily wrong. It's just the intention behind it. You know, if it becomes an idol, then it will. But even the Tower of Babel, you told me that that tower got knocked down. This tower got knocked down too. Alexander the Great destroyed it. You know, but you want to know why? He destroyed it for the wrong reason too. He destroyed it so people wouldn't stop worshiping him. Because let's not forget, the Egyptian pharaohs, they were believed to be gods. So people would actually worship the Egyptian pharaohs.
I was framing a parallel a while ago, and I don't know whether it needs to be talked about or not. In other words, in that day and time, they were amazed in themselves that they could build a tower that tall. How about in 1964, when our president told us that we were going to go to the moon? I mean, really.
Yeah.
And we did.
Well, it says,
And that was amazing, really.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, God even said, you know, with them unified like this, they can do anything they set their minds to. And let's take that. What if the church was unified? What if we could all do what we set our minds to? If we were all unified, like you said, if everybody had a true change of heart, if everybody was truly a Christian, wasn't hoarding anything behind them, wasn't trying to hide any sins, can't do that anyway. But what if we were all unified? Imagine what we could do. Not necessarily to the point where, God, look, I'm better. No, that's not, okay? But think about the people we could reach all over the world with our testimony if we can all just work together. Sadly, that's not expected to happen until tribulation and after Christ comes back. So, I'm curious what y'all think. What do y'all think we could do if the church was unified? I believe we could reach every nation in the world with the gospel. That's what I believe we could do. I believe that we could stop having dead services where the Holy Spirit doesn't move. I believe that we could stop having people come in just to sit down at church and feel good. I believe that we could have true changes. But until all of us can have that mindset where we're all together, we don't have to all speak the same language to be unified, okay? We don't. All we've got to do is be unified under Jesus, under God. That's where it's a brother and sisterhood. That's pretty much what it is. We're all his children anyway. So why fight your own brother or sister? I don't care how much you don't like them. You're still not supposed to fight them.
We wrestle.
Yeah, that's true. My brother and I do wrestle. That's true. We don't fight, but we wrestle. Absolutely. But, so think about that next time maybe you get in an argument with a Christian. You're arguing with your brother or your sister. You may not claim them, but they're still your brother or sister. But we don't, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't tend to look at it like that sometimes. You see somebody you don't like and they may be a Christian, it's ironic if you don't like somebody that's your own family. I mean, but I'm sure we've all got that one person that irritates us. I'm pretty sure of that. And so, let's just think about it. If we all look at each other as brother and sister, do you think we could change the world? Like the whole church, the church as a whole, without violence? That's one thing. Because everybody seems to think that the only way to truly change something is with violence. Look at what ISIS is doing right now. They believe that they can change the entire Middle Eastern world into an Islamic world by the beheading of Christians and the domination of their aristocracy, whatever they have. So, do y'all think we could do it without violence? I'm just curious.
No.
You don't think so?
If we're all in one accord,
I'm sorry, say that again?
that would be, if we were all in one accord, but that we're not gonna be all in one accord.
I believe the last statistic I read, there are 2.8 billion Christians that pronounce themselves as Christian throughout the entire world. Considering there's almost 8 million people in the world, that's not very much. That's about 25 to 30%. Okay? So, and Billy Graham says that he believes from the studies that he's done personally that only 10% of them may be saved, like truly saved. So bump that down, if that's 2 or 3% of the people worldwide. God can do anything, but it kind of makes you, kind of do like that, thinking that only 2 or 3% of us actually believe it. Because I have heard there's actually a songwriter, I don't know his name, but he's a very popular Christian songwriter. This is what he actually told people. He does not believe that the book of Genesis was an actual record account of how the earth was made. It's just poetry. I saw that. If somebody came up to you and said that the book of Genesis was just poetry, what would your response be?
I don't believe that.
I'd look at you and go, you're professing to be a Christian, you don't even believe that God created the world. What is that? I'm like, what? That's like
What is he singing for
I'd like
then,
to
just to
know
make
who
money?
it is.
See, and that's actually what I was kind of getting to. He must be singing for just money. Obviously,
Fine.
exactly. That's another tower you can put in front of it. Because there was actually a band I listened to. My mom was the one that told me the singer got arrested for this. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Like a
There was this band I listened to. They're called As I Lay Dying. They were a Christian metal band. They had gotten really popular. It turns out the singer was arrested for trying to hire a hitman to kill his estranged wife. And I found out, I did some more research into it. I stopped listening to them, I promise. And anyway, I did some further research into it. It turns out the entire band had converted to atheism 2 or 3 years before this account. So that just goes to show you not everybody can handle fame.
Very few.
Because fame, I look at it as kind of like a monster. It eats you. I mean, these were people, because I watched one of his name was Tim Lambesis. I watched one of his interviews one time. He talked about going on, Christian camps, doing all this, doing stuff with his youth leader. He came from a Christian family. His father was a preacher. And 30 years down the road, he's trying to hire somebody to murder his wife. It's just, how can you do that? How can you?
It's a lifestyle. That's why it's so important what lifestyle you lead and and the people you associate with.
And see, these people, and just the stuff that I've been, they've been friends for years. I mean, it's been the same lineup for 10.
But they're in a different environment now.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely.
As I always told you, it matters who your friends are. Even if you're not doing something, if you're caught with people who are doing something, you get blamed right along with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just sad to think, that his life got thrown away. He spent 9 years in prison for it. He won't get out until he's like 42 years old. And his life's pretty much going to be over by then.
And that's another thing you have to worry about telling the children today is worship. Be careful about these celebrities that you worship, that these ones that you put to such high esteem.
Yeah.
Because you know, it might not be the type of, you know, person that you really want to follow.
Well, let's hit a kind of a nerve with that. A big role model for a lot of girls was Hannah Montana. Miley Cyrus went crazy. She straight up went crazy. And you mean to tell me that you're gonna let if he was a sister, not a brother, you think he ain't gonna be looking at Miley Cyrus. I don't care if it's Hannah Montana or not. I mean, you're right, absolutely, a lot of pop singers. I'm not saying all of them, don't get me wrong, but there are a few that all they talk about is sex, drugs, and money. Even rappers.
Yeah.
My mom told me if she ever comments to a rapper like that, she could forget, that's my iPhone, she's taking it. That's it, it's gone. But it's just, and you were talking about worshiping, you know, certain things. Let's say you go to a church, a big church, and they're playing secular music, or, you know, music that isn't Christian, just to draw people in. That's kind of dangerous. I can see the point, and you want to draw people in so they can hear the message, but are you drawing them in for the right reasons? Or if you have a big church, let's say you got a bunch of lights and sounds and band, are you worshiping God or are you worshiping the service? That is actually my Sunday school teacher, Miss Jean. She's very big on that. She likes to keep things simple just so you can focus on God, not necessarily that. But everybody worships differently. Personally, like I said earlier, for me, I like the music. The music is definitely a big factor for me. But not everybody's like that. Some people like Billy Hardwick's sermon. I'm one of those people. I love the sermons. But we've got to be careful that we're not worshiping the things, okay? Because that's not, no. That goes right back to towers. I think some people, actually, there's a church in Alabama. They spent $16 million on an entertainment system for teenagers. $16 million. This is a huge church. This is a mega church. Got something like 15 to 20,000 attendance. It's like a Joel Osteen church. It's huge. And, I mean, it's like, it kind of lost for words, you know? And it's like, yeah, you can...
What that money could do.
Exactly, that's what I was, exactly. Because I get it that you're trying to draw people in, but then again, are they going for the service or are they going for the entertainment?
It's like a concert.
Exactly. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the concert at a church, nothing wrong with that at all. But when you are using that just to bring people in, they're not going to be worshiping God, they're going to be worshiping that band. If it replaces your service every single Sunday, and there's not even a sermon, no choir or anything, it's just band, that's not a service. It's not. That is just a concert for entertainment every Sunday. But yeah, you're right, that $60 million, that could have gone for missionary trips. Could you imagine how many people you could send on mission trips with $16 million? Gosh, I wouldn't even make a quarter, no, wait, excuse me. I wouldn't even make an 18th of that in my lifetime, probably. And sitting there and spending $16 million. Man. But, actually, let me take one time. Okay, we still got a little time. I'm about to say, I hope we, even if we run over a little bit, that's okay with me, because I hope y'all are enjoying this as much as I am. And so,
Enjoy.
I'm glad that y'all are enjoying it. And so,
I'm not enjoying.
do you think maybe that church is worshiping their money before God, since they use their money not to send people on mission trips, and I can see like improvements on the church. Like I can see if they need something fixed, they want to make it a little bigger, that's okay. That's fine, whatever. But they spend it on an entertainment system. I mean, they're huge. They're like 4 great big domes like that. They're huge. I saw a picture of it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we want a new entertainment system, but we're not going like that.
It's just like, it's got like this whole big, like a trampoline room, like kind of like sky high trampolines everywhere. That's one of them. There's like a basketball court with a gym and everything. And it's just like, you know that people are going to skip the service to go over there. Why even put that temptation? And see, that's another thing. What about the pastor? I mean, I get that he can't make all the decisions, but do you think he maybe stepped up? What about the people that don't step up? What about those that teach only, like, there's a very popular type of gospel, it's false, going around, that Jesus abolished the Old Testament, that he did away with it, that we don't have to follow the 10 Commandments anymore. And it blows people's minds when they hear this. Jesus did not abolish the Old Testament. He came and created a new covenant. There's a difference there. New covenant does not mean throw out the Torah. That's not what that means. Okay, we still abide by the 10 Commandments because Jesus actually said in Luke, if you disobey any of these laws, it's something like you might as well break the 10 Commandments. That's what he was saying. Even the slightest of laws. And so it makes you wonder also, how much time are people spending in their Bibles? I mean, really. To sit there and you don't even know if Jesus abolished the Torah or not. He didn't. He did not abolish the Torah. You can look all you want. He did not do it. And there's also another very popular gospel going around that is also false. Talking about that Jesus abolished the Old Testament, but you're still supposed to give your 10% to the church. Deuteronomy pretty much established a tithing commitment, saying that give to God what is His. And back then, if you had, like, let's say you had 60 sheep, you'd give 6 of them to the church, and they'd use it for food or sacrifices. The priest needed it for sacrifices so you could be cleansed of your sins. And so now it's money. You know, that's what we use as our 10%. And I've heard of preachers, there's one preacher, black preacher in particular, I can't think of his name, but he teaches that. That is his main focal point, that you should give 10 to 25% of your wages every year to the church. And I mean, I've heard of incidences where the pastors have stole money out of churches' accounts and used it for their own personal gain. I mean, it seems like people are worshiping money more and more. Money is something, it seems like people who don't have as much money are more satisfied, and it's like backwards. The people who are rich want more and more, and they have money to spend. They got gobs of money to spend. I mean, so what do y'all think about that?
All that you think that they've got freely is they don't. They've got to get more money to keep it.
And
Because the more stuff you have, there's just more it costs.
Yeah.
yeah, but when it becomes that you're taking way more than you need. I mean, like, I'm not saying it's just enough just to get by. I'm not really saying that, but like, these people who have millions upon millions upon millions and are so stingy with it, they will not let go of any of it. Like I said, tight fist, take it to the grave. You don't get to keep it. If anything, your children are going to go blow it. That's what's going to happen. And so, my thing is,